I've learned over the years, and growth happens when you get out of your comfort zone, right? The comfort zone are the ands. It's your routine. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, right? The going out of the comfort zone, that's the but. That's the conflict that you're embracing in order to achieve the resolution, the synthesis of you and that conflict.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to A Matter of Speaking, a podcast for leading voices in the arenas of health, wealth, and relationships. Today, we're talking wealth, we're talking storytelling, and I'm your host, Dylan Barr, here with Leader. In this podcast, we talk to leaders in these arenas, and we understand their stories of how they got their message out there in hopes to reaching people that have a message in their heart, a mastery in their mind, that are looking to get it out into the world and just want some guidance, want to hear how other people have done it, and maybe want a nudge to get outside that comfort zone. If that is you and you like this stuff, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and commenting. It's one, how we know who our audience is. It's two, how we help other people hear the message of our guests. And three, it's how we get better at what we're doing. We love to hear from you. Thank you so much for what you do. Today, we have an incredible guest for you, Joseph Romm. Let me tell you a little bit about him. These are three pretty cool places. These are three pretty cool outlets that talk about Joseph. Rolling Stone named Joseph Romm one of the 100 people who are reinventing America in 2009. He has an MIT physics PhD. What? And is on the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn faculty, and is an expert on climate, communication, and storytelling, which we talk about today. Time called him the web's most influential climate blogger and named him the hero of the environment. What? Time, like the magazine. Over 13 years, Romm published 10,000 blog posts. The real-time feedback helped him test the best storytelling strategies to see which went viral. And CNN host Van Jones said Romm understands the secrets of persuasion and messaging, calling him the communicator's communicator. Romm has authored 10 books, including How to Go Viral and Reach Millions and Language Intelligence, Lessons on Persuasion from Jesus, Shakespeare, Lincoln, and Lady Gaga. This dude is amazing. I absolutely love the topic today. He says that Taylor Swift is the modern day Shakespeare. And if you're frustrated with what you just heard, stick with us because he tells you why. He tells you the mastery of storytelling and how you have a duty to be a leading voice. He talks about a great storyteller is the modern age bard and how these people balance the logistics and the analytics of good storytelling, the foundations and the frameworks, along with the entertainment of modern culture. And that mix is what creates great storytellers. Love how he talks about it. He tells you what you can start doing as a storyteller yourself to get your message out there, but he leaves it to you on what next steps you should take so you can leave that lasting impact yourself within this world. You can be the storyteller of your own life. You can live that hero's journey. He's absolutely incredible. We're going to pass it over to him and I in just a second. Before, though, we are going to tell you that this podcast is brought to you by Leader. Over the last 8 years, this company has made it a mission to help its coaching and consulting clients get their authentic message out to the world in hopes of reaching their desired audience through the power of speaking and business building. With over 700 clients landing a TEDx talk, hundreds more speaking on virtual and physical stages around the world, Leader has perfected the art of delivering a top-tier message, even for a great storyteller like Joe, who we talked to today. They also offer programs to build and scale your own high-ticket program and authentically market and sell it to your target audience in order to build a sustainably scaled business. So if you have a message in your heart, if you have a mastery in your mind, and you want some help, if you're seeking a mentor like Joe talks about today, there are links in the bio to check out our information, follow us on our socials, have a free webinar delivered by Taylor Conroy, the president himself, showing you how you can get your message out there. And as always, Like, subscribe. Now let's kick it over to me. All right. Welcome back to A Matter of Speaking podcast, episode 41. Joseph Romm, who we're going to go by Joe. We're going to be talking about wealth. We're going to be talking about the power of storytelling. We're going to be talking about Shakespeare and Taylor Swift and what they have in common. Joe, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Dylan.
I told you this before we went live, man, but I am having you not only to help get your message out there. I'm a nerd here. I am excited to take notes and learn about the power of storytelling. It is something that I aspire to be very good at. And being able to learn from you is a privilege. So, yeah, I'm excited. As excited as you, hopefully. So let's dive in with the first question I like to ask, man. Everyone gets it, right? We call this A Matter of Speaking, a podcast for leading voices. And for me, I think there's something to that term, being a leading voice, because clearly everybody has a voice, but you want to get yours out there, right? You talk about you're a climate expert, but you do that through storytelling, right? Like that's how you get your message and change things. So for you, what does it mean to wear that badge of honor to be a leading voice?
Well, for me, what it means is that there are a lot of people who care about my issue, climate change, but maybe they don't have a platform. Maybe they're not someone who feels comfortable speaking in public and expressing their views. I can speak for them, and I often, I try very hard to understand what is scientifically accurate, what is what people are interested in, and then I spend a great deal of time figuring out how to communicate it in a way that will be memorable. Right, that's my job. I mean, if you're not memorable, then it doesn't matter what you say, right? No one's going to remember you. So your first and foremost job is to be memorable, and so that's what I have spent a lot of time, trying to figure out.
Yeah, so it's like what I'm hearing is there's a lot of people that share the message that you have in your heart, right? But they don't have the mastery to speak and get it out there. So it seems very selfless, right? One, it's something that you are good at because you have put in the time, but it's like you almost have a bunch of people behind you that believe in the same thing that you carry out on your speaking platforms.
Absolutely, and I'm, sometimes when I go and speak, people will come out and say, in fact, when I started blogging, a story member, I got an email from a woman who said, I thank you, for your blog, because I thought I was going crazy. I was concerned about climate change. I started back in 2006 blogging. It was like, and I didn't see anyone talking about this. I was wondering, am I the only one?
Yeah.
So, that feeling of in this world, we know that people aren't the only one. And so, that's one of the goals of being a voice. Another is to help teach them what the most effective way to communicate what they want to communicate is. Right? Because I'm only one person. Yes, I can do podcasts and things, but all your listeners, if they go out and communicate in their own platforms, that kind of force multiplies what I'm doing. So ultimately, that is my other goal.
And now we have a force multiplier speaking platform at the palm of our hands, right? At any second of any day. So I'm very excited today. We're going to be learning the science. You say the science and the art of good storytelling. And you have years of practice with this. It's funny. I like to ask people as a story enthusiast, like what their origin story is. Now it's going to be very meta that I'm asking a storyteller what his origin story is. When did you get into studying storytelling?
Well, I think when I got into discussing storytelling, and this is in my video, the which I call the storytelling secrets of Shakespeare and Taylor Swift. I think on the TEDx platform they actually changed the title because I don't think they wanted to use Taylor Swift, her name, so they changed it to, I think, three vital storytelling secrets. But the story I tell is that when my daughter was 3, she started saying blah, blah, blah to me. And I was okay with her repeating things she heard if she used them correctly. So I asked her if she knew what blah, blah, blah meant. And she paused and said, "It's when Daddy says something that doesn't matter."
I'm so sorry.
So
I'm so sorry.
so dang, she did know what it meant, and that hit me hard. I had gotten a PhD in physics from MIT, and I had spent years working on clean energy, but until I had a daughter, I never realized how often I said things that don't matter. So that really got me very focused on figuring out what words matter. That sort of became my holy grail, and that quest led me to study the great storytellers.
Kids, I'm so sorry if you see kids changing the world in only ways that they know how to do. That's incredible because again, physics mind, I can see of like I know this stuff, and then having such an innocent soul say, "Hey, this doesn't matter." You go on this journey to
Yeah,
study the greatest storytellers there are. We're gonna get to Taylor Swift.
yeah,
I
yeah,
promise you. I think it's crazy that TEDx platform didn't have you put Taylor Swift on it. But who are the original story, like the first
right.
storytellers you went after to learn from?
Well, I had been a fan of Shakespeare, and in the video, I tell a story about that, which, um, but I had fallen in love with Shakespeare and his use of language.
Hmm.
And I didn't understand when at that moment, what he was doing that got me interested. But he was sort of one of the first inspirations. But the truth is that from a very early age, all of us are bombarded with stories from, there's scientific evidence that by 9 months, kids can follow who like the protagonist of a story is, right? It's very deeply ingrained on us. One of the things I did when I was studying storytelling is also studied the scientific literature by neuroscientists and by marketing experts, all the people who've studied what is effective, memorable communications. And so what I learned is that we co-evolved language and storytelling at the same time. And so the answer to the question, who are the original storytellers? They were the great bards,
Hmm.
right? They would go from town to town telling their like 2 hour long epic heroic stories. Homer,
Hmm.
right? The Iliad, the Odyssey, the Greek myths, the stories from the Bible, right? Those were handed down and developed over thousands of years. And these storytellers got better over the millennia, right? Because if you didn't tell a good story, you wouldn't get food, you wouldn't get shelter, you wouldn't get money, right? So you quickly learned what kept an audience's attention and also what helped them remember these stories so that they could pass them on.
Hmm.
And so those tricks, those storytelling tricks, were created by the great bards over time.
And they evolve, like you say, with language because you realize what's gripping the people around me because that gets me money. And then that is passed on to the next generation. The next generation torches pass, torches pass, torches pass. And one day it lands in the hand of this beautiful blonde haired woman who is dating Travis Kelsey. What, like, why do you think? First off, you say that Taylor Swift is the new modern day Shakespeare. And I'm going
Yeah.
to pause real quick for all of our viewers that are in that alley to roll their eyes. Hold on, let them. But my wife would love you. And I am so excited to tell her what I learned today. Why do you think Taylor Swift is the modern day Shakespeare?
Well, one of the things I learned as I was blogging and then studying storytelling, and then I decided to write a couple of books, including How to Go Viral and Reach Millions, is that who are the modern day bards? The bards sang their stories, their epic poems, right? That's why we say if someone doesn't get recognized, they're an unsung hero,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
We sang about the heroes. So the modern day bards are the singer songwriters. And if you want to study those techniques, you should study the best singer songwriters. And in earlier books, I have written about Bob Dylan, I've written about Lady Gaga. But Taylor clearly rose to a very unique level. And the short answer of why I call her a modern day Shakespeare is that she figured out how to take the techniques, the secrets of classical poetry, and turn them into popular, emotional, powerful works of art and entertainment. It's the ability to marry the classical poetry with popular entertainment, and that's what Shakespeare did.
Hmm.
He was. We may think of him as some sort of old, classical poet,
Mm-hmm.
but back in his day, he was popular. He had all these groundlings who paid like a penny or two. He had to entertain the masses,
Hmm.
as well as the, let's say the middle class, the upper middle class of his day, who had nice seats in the Globe Theater. So the goal of being both sophisticated and popular at the same time, that's at two levels you're speaking at. And that's what specifically the elements of poetry that the bards developed were the figures of speech, right? Rhyme, alliteration, metaphor, irony, foreshadow. That allows you to speak at two different levels: the surface meaning of the words, and then an underlying meaning of the words.
Mm.
And I think you see with all of the great songwriters, they're speaking to multiple audiences. Obviously, Bob Dylan did, um, and but as I say, and I just got more and more into Taylor. I have a 17-year-old daughter
Yeah, yeah.
now. She was 3 back then, and she just kept introducing me to all these different singer songwriters. And I would tell people who don't know a lot about Taylor, um, go watch the Tiny Desk concert at NPR, so you'll see some of her best songs and how she just has a guitar and a piano. She doesn't, no fancy band and auto tune or anything like that. So yeah, she is the real deal. If all you know about her, there's another line in the play, if I can say,
Please.
which is in my TEDx talk, which is, if all you know about Taylor is her early songs, you've missed a lot, right? Shakespeare's first 3 plays were Henry VI, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, right? Not Hamlet or Macbeth,
Yeah.
right? It takes a while to get good.
Yeah, it's like, because you have to understand these frameworks and these foundations. You're talking about, you say, the science and the art, but what I'm
Yep.
hearing from you is to be that modern day bard, which will be like the plenum storyteller, let's say.
Yeah.
You have this ability to mix the frameworks and the foundations of good poetry, good storytelling, with entertainment to captivate an audience, to get people that want to come to you. That's what Taylor Swift does really well. So if you don't, I know you said a couple of things in there. You're saying rhyme, foreshadowing, alliteration. You said one others that I'll get on the
Yeah.
replay here. But is it okay if I ask you, like, what do you feel is the most important secret to incredible storytelling, if we look at
Well,
that side of the equation?
there are so many.
Mm-hmm. Give me
In
one
the
good one.
in the TEDx talk, I talk about 3,
Okay.
and the one that I don't know if it's the most important. I would say one of the most important, but the one you haven't heard of, which is the simplest, is this rule of replacing, where you go through the speech or the thing that you're writing, and you circle all the ands. Ands are the word that's the list. I woke up, I ate breakfast, I went to work, and it's like that's boring.
Mm-hmm.
The word, that's the most overused word in stories. The most underused word is the word but. But is the word of the twist, the turn, the antagonist, the unexpected, right? That's what we want to hear. So if you can replace the ands with the word but, and then you can follow that with a phrase that begins with the word so or therefore, that's the resolution, right? That's the 3-part structure. You set up the situation, you have the turn, and then you have the resolution. What the old ancient, not German, but the Germans back in the 19th century called thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the essence of what we're seeing, and that's what happens in the hero's journey story, right? We start one way, and then we meet an enemy, and in the process of learning our superpower and fighting our enemy, we gain new knowledge and become a different thing, right?
Hmm.
So all of these stories have that certain rhythm to it. But at a very basic level, if you use this scheme of and then but and so, and as I say in the TEDx talk, a student once asked me, well, was there a popular example of this scheme? And I said, well, you may remember the song by Carly Rae Jepsen, Hey, I Just Met You, and this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe.
Hmm.
That's just the distillation of that. And you will see and this is something that Shakespeare used a great many. That Taylor used a great many of. All of the great storytellers have what's called a high ratio of buts to ands.
Hmm. More butts, less
More
ands.
buts,
So from what I'm hearing there, using Carly Rae Jepsen as an example, it's not like eliminate all ands, but
right?
most people are using and way too much,
Yeah,
and most of them can be replaced with the but and then the so.
right. Well, a good storyteller. A friend of mine actually did some calculations, and he found that there was this ratio, and if just 20% as many buts as ands, in other words, for every 100 ands you had 20 buts or more, that's a really good ratio. If you look at the Sermon on the Mount by Jesus, one of the great stories, maybe the most memorable and repeated story, that has 29 butts for about 99 ands. So again,
Above
this is
average.
above
Jesus. Way
average,
to go,
absolutely.
Jesus.
And that's the way. If you look at the works of Shakespeare, if you look at the works of Taylor, you can do the searches yourself, and that's what you will learn. So that's just the simplest thing I like to tell people that they haven't heard.
Yeah.
Is it easy to do?
Yeah, I love that. There's also Trey Parker, Matt Stone talk about that's what made them famous is they took out the and then model, it's and then and then and then and then and then and moving it to the but and therefore because it keeps it enticing, right? And even coming back on that percentage where it's like we're at least putting 20 to 30% buts for every and.
Absolutely, and in fact, it is Trey Parker, and that was both. He famously they did South Park,
Yeah,
but they also did the Book of Mormon.
yeah, huge.
One of the most successful Broadway shows of all time. And yes, that was he called it the rule of replacing, right?
Yeah. You talked about something that I get very excited about as well, which in 1949, this man wrote a book called A Hero with a Thousand Faces.
Yeah.
His name was Joseph Campbell. And in that book, he talks about the hero's journey. I think any good storyteller or aspiring storyteller has heard of it, right? Maybe they don't dive into all 17 steps of it, but they've heard of it because it's all throughout mythology,
Yeah.
right? It's how like you say, it's how we've told good stories to get to where we're at right now to teach morals, ethics, values
Yeah.
for a good amount of people. Why do you think? Because I think we're all
Yeah.
walking our own story. We are
We
our
are.
own
Yeah.
protagonist. Why do you feel it's so important to blend that hero's journey into our own story?
Well, let's first say yes. The hero's journey is probably the single most common pattern for stories. What Campbell discovered was that all of the great myths independently developed, whether it was Africa or the Native Americans or the Nordic, the Europeans, Chinese, it didn't matter. All those stories had the same beat, the same rhythm, the same story structure. And that became famous because George Lucas was inspired by that for episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars. The original Star Wars movie were built around that hero's journey story. And ultimately, every movie today, maybe half of all the movies, whether it's a rom-com or a heroic story, is using that particular pattern. The is this today still the most powerful story that we will watch all the time, even though we know what the structure is? And I think the short answer is yes, we're all on our journey, right? We're all trying to figure out our place in the world. What makes us special? What's our superpower,
Mm.
right? That's what I tell people, right? You're trying to figure out your superpower. The other reason why this is such an important story, I mean, I can tell you why it was an important story for the tribes who evolved into Homo sapiens, right?
Mm.
They had to persuade people to act in the name of the tribe rather than being selfish, right? That's what it is to be a hero. I will defend you, I will die for you because this is a larger thing than just me,
Mm.
right? That's what it means to be a hero, right? To
Yeah.
see something larger than you and to be willing to sacrifice for it. That's why that story was so important, right? You had to persuade the entire tribe, right, that the tribe was bigger than the individual.
Mm.
And that's why when you go speak in public, what is the single most important thing you have to do first? You have
I was gonna say, if you're asking me, I'm so nervous, but it's get people to like rally behind you, I would imagine.
right. You have to persuade them that you're in the same tribe.
Hmm.
If you're not in their tribe, they will tune you out. Doesn't matter how smart you are. That is your job one. I'm like you in certain respects. And therefore, the hero's journey story is also sometimes called the zero to hero story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a person who was like you once. I had the same, I didn't know things. I didn't know storytelling. Clearly, my daughter told me I was blah, 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 right? So I'm telling a story that we can all recognize me in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being brought down to earth by the simple words of a child. And I reacted. My reaction was I don't want my daughter to say that what daddy says doesn't matter. So this is why I went on the journey, the quest, with the help of mentors and friends, right? All the things that we see in the Harry Potter books or the Star Wars movies, all of those, to come to some knowledge that I come back and bring to you, right? The full hero's journey story starts in the ordinary world with Luke Skywalker or Harry Potter, living with their aunt and uncle in an ordinary place. There's a call to action. And there's multiple steps, but ultimately they are pulled towards this call to action. There's a mentor. They learn their superpowers. They gain strange friends, often magical animals, right? Um, they go through trials and tribulations. They must defeat the evil, which they learn from. They grow both superpowers but also knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and then they come back home to the normal world, special world, normal world,
Mm-hmm.
to deliver the message. In the version that Joseph Campbell talks about, he says it's bringing back the elixir, the holy grail that heals King Arthur. But in modern day stories, it's knowledge. The most clearest hero's journey story there ever was is The Wizard of Oz,
Mm-hmm.
right? Dorothy runs away from home in Kansas, which is filmed in black and white. She gets swept up into the tornado. She kills, vanquishes evil. She learns a lot about herself. She comes back home to the normal world, bringing with her the lesson, there's no place like home.
Mm-hmm.
Or Spider-Man learns, with great power comes great responsibility. And so all of us who are speaking to an audience are bringing them an elixir, bringing them the wisdom we gained going from this journey of, hey, I used to not be a good speaker, right?
Yeah.
And now here I have some knowledge to impart with you.
I mean, if I'm watching this, I'm replaying that over and over again because it's so important of our own journey, right? It's like going to the special world, like you said, the elixir and that knowledge comes through trials and tribulations. So if there's anything I add to that is if you're watching right now, learning this and being like, oh yeah, I am the hero of my own tale. Two big things that came up. One is we're gonna have those earth-shattering events where we need to pull ourselves up by our
Yep.
bootstraps, and if you're sitting in them, good, because what can you do with it? And then the second thing is, and this is just more me getting excited about it, is a lot of times that hero rejects the first call to go to that
Yes,
special world. And
right.
then, so you could be in this moment of like, we're going to talk about the comfort and uncomfort zone in just a second here, where someone wants to put themselves out there, but something's holding them back. You could be rejecting the call. So
That's right.
I love this. Thank you so much for your knowledge here. Now I'm curious, working with us.
Yeah,
I want to shift to
sure.
you've done 2 TEDx talks in the last year. One on climate, where you use your power of storytelling, and one where you really break down the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
What have been some of the biggest things you've learned doing 2 TEDx talks in a year?
Well, first of all, it is hard. And the single hardest thing, I've given a lot of talks,
hmm
a couple hundred over the years. I've never memorized a talk of 12 to 14 minutes length.
hmm
Not only do you have to memorize it, you have to memorize it well enough so it doesn't really sound memorized,
hmm
right? You have to, and if you're not a professional actor, right, people train for a lifetime to be able to talk as if they're not reading a script, right? So that is a lot of work. And I learned, and I will say, I learned from Leader, a great many of the skills. You have great coaches. You need coaches. I'll say, just like your hero's journey, you better find a mentor,
mm
right? Yes, if you want to go down this path of giving a TEDx talk, and I certainly recommend it, because you will learn a lot,
Yeah.
right? Is yes, get some mentors. Usually the TEDx talk will have some guides, mentors that they will provide to you, and then thought leader. It was thought leader when I started. Now
Yeah.
it's leader.
Leader. Yeah.
The had some amazing guides who helped me, because again, it's always hard to evaluate ourselves. It's so personal to us. We need people to tell us, yeah, we get it, but that you can, one of your coaches said, that's a good story. Now cut it out, delete it,
Yeah. That's
because
great
it's
for you. Now
yeah,
cut it.
exactly. And that's another thing you have to learn. I was raised by a newspaper editor,
Yeah.
so I did learn early on, you can't fall in love with your own words.
Yeah.
You can't, right? You have to be willing to be edited by somebody who knows more about you, about storytelling, and most importantly, the audience.
hmm
Because the second talk I gave, the one that I gave on storytelling, was to an Irish audience. I went over to Tralee, Ireland, with the most wonderful people, and here I am, an American, speaking to the Irish about storytelling.
Yeah.
The greatest storytellers. So she, I had some stories, and she said, "Well, that won't go off so well with an Irish audience." So yes, you have to know your audience, right? Yes, the larger TEDx crowd is we have an idea of who listens, but you still have to appeal to that specific audience you're talking to.
You do such a great job of then foreshadowing and then pulling it back, that call back to finding your mentor in the hero's journey. It's so cool to hear someone that has this mastery of storytelling and language in general still saying, hey, I love the mentorship that I got. You have 2 TEDx talks, and now, I mean, one of them big, it's part of your handle here, Joe Romm,
Yeah.
how to go viral and reach millions. Now that you've done this, who is it that tends to come to you for help, and what are they coming to you for?
Well, no one teaches this anymore. This is the incredible thing, and to be honest, yeah, I realized it took me a decade to unlearn what I was taught as getting a PhD in physics.
Mm-hmm.
Because there you're taught it's all facts, numbers, charts, PowerPoint presentations. Take your name out of it. You read a scientific abstract. There's no human being there explaining why this topic interested them, right? So we have to, and like I said, we're bombarded with stories from age 0 to 12. And then kids learn the ability to do logic, and we bombard them with algebra, and we stop doing the stories that they love and wanted to hear over and over again. And the more education you get, the more abstract you are taught concepts and how to communicate. So it is very hard to find even one class on these secrets of storytelling in a university, and it's an elective. It should be as mandatory as it is. I went to MIT. You have to take calculus.
Yeah.
Everyone's expecting to know calculus. Well, guess what? Storytelling is like a million times more important than calculus, because if you can't communicate in an effective way, it doesn't matter what else you know.
So I was literally going to say calculus, and you took the words out of my mouth. It is wild. It's one of the things that I'll do on the side here. I typically take a bunch of notes, and I'm just enthralled with your knowledge on this. And I'm like, yes, we need more storytelling. So is it aspiring storytellers that come to you? Is it people that have a mastery that's a little bit more practical, analytical, logical, that are saying, now, how do I get this out? Like, who is it that finds Joe Romm?
Well, for a long time, I was blogging on climate science, and I
Yeah.
still, do a great deal. I'm at the University of Pennsylvania, and I do research on and communications. A lot of scientists and engineers, right? And I worked with a lot of clean. I'm into clean energy. I was acting assistant secretary of energy efficiency and renewable energy. I help advocate for solar and wind and other clean energy. And all of the people who run those companies, they're scientists, they're engineers,
Yeah.
right? Who had a brilliant idea, but are they good at telling their story? Are they good at marketing? Right? All of this is connected, by the way. So the storytelling is connected to your brand, right? Because this is the thing, that Steve Jobs clearly understood, right? This is a matter of what the brand is a brand story, right? And so that's connected to marketing. So storytelling is connected to success in business intimately. There's no difference. To make a successful organization, I need to turn it into a cultural tribe that has a shared story, right? If I want to sell a product, I am trying to sell, as Stinnett, Simon Sinek says in the famous TED Talk, what's your why? And so that's what Steve Jobs was great at. He wasn't selling computers. He was selling, you want to think differently. You want to imagine the world differently. This is your tool. And that's what we're trying to get at. Everyone needs to be able to communicate in stories. So I get all sorts of people. Somebody might want me to help them write a book, or at least turn the book they were writing into something. And it's not rocket science. I will go through the chapters and talk to them, get the stories from them, start the chapter with a story.
Yeah, I mean, even the way you broke it down today on this podcast in 30 minutes, right? It seems simple. So if you're out there, if you're a business owner, if you're a scientist, if you're still an aspiring speaker and you want to get better at your craft, Joe Romm's a guy. I will be going back to watch this again. And how do people find you?
Well, first of all, they can get my book, How to Go Viral and Reach Millions, on Amazon. This is everything I know about storytelling. So, I'll have a new book eventually on Taylor Swift and Shakespeare. LinkedIn is my preferred place.
Okay. And is it Joe or Joseph Romm?
It is Joe Romm that they can find me at. I should check. I think, frankly, if you looked for,
Joe or Joseph Romm. Just if anyone's listening to this on Spotify, we are saying Romm. It is spelled Romm. So
absolutely,
I made the mistake of Rom before we started, but it's Romm.
It's shortened from Romanoff. Yes, absolutely. It is Joe Romm on LinkedIn. I'm actually blogging almost every day using everything I've just told you to go viral there, because it's a very good audience, 1 billion people, but also the professional audience.
Yeah. I love this, Joe. All right, this is the last part of the interview. It's rapid fire style. I call it the uncomfort zone, right? This is where we take our ego hats off and we're reaching those people that, like we were saying earlier, have a message in their heart, have a mastery in their mind, but they're still in that getting started. Therefore, we want to help them. That was my best and but therefore. Why did you decide as an physics, MIT, to then lean into storytelling? Why did you decide to get outside your comfort zone for something you're passionate about?
Well, I've learned over the years, and that's growth happens when you get out of your comfort zone, right? The comfort zone are the ands. It's your routine. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, right? The going out of the comfort zone, that's the but.
Hmm.
That's the conflict that you're embracing in order to achieve the resolution, the synthesis of you and that conflict. And I would just say to people, there's a famous saying, great stories happen to those who know how to tell them.
Hmm.
Right? We all have this great stories because we're all humans. Some of us know how to tell them, and others don't. And I quote one of the things I say at the end of the TEDx talk is that no one's born a storyteller. The great storytellers, work hard at it. And even Taylor Swift said, you have to write 100 songs before you write the first good one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like getting started. So I was going to ask, getting started and having that mindset of being the but person rather than the
Yeah.
and, so you can make your own story. That kind of answers the last question of how does someone start to get outside their comfort zone. But then I guess the last question would be, why do you feel most people don't get outside of their comfort zone to pursue what they're passionate about?
Um, Look, it takes, as we know from various books, it takes a lot. It took me a long time to get to this point,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would say, like I said, a decade to unlearn, and then a decade to learn. So yeah, that you can do it faster.
Mm-hmm.
You simply have to commit yourself to it. And the comfort zone that apparently people's greatest fear, more than dying, is public speaking, and which is kind of crazy only because in the tribal societies, that's you spoke to that group all day long. Now I think why it's so problematic now is we're constantly speaking to people we don't know,
Yeah.
and that's kind of terrifying. I get it, but that's the point, is don't look at them as people you don't know, right? Look at them as, right, the friends you haven't made yet, as find the commonalities.
Yeah.
Learn about your audience, find what your commonalities are, and start there.
And bring them into your tribe. Let them know you're part of their tribe. And
Right.
that is a perfect bow on everything that we've talked about today. Joe Romm, thank you so much for your mastery, your brilliance here. I took a bunch of notes. Most of them are for my personal self, but we talked about a bunch of stuff. Like a lot of people care about a message, but if you have the mastery or the courage to learn the mastery to speak, you're doing it not only for yourself, but all those people behind you. And getting that message out to the world, learning the structure and the frameworks of good storytelling, like we talked about today, and being able to blend it with entertainment as this world continues to evolve. Know the power of the and the but, and lean towards the latter, even if it's only 20% of the time. Get out there, and when you speak, persuade people that you are part of their tribe and you have a message for the whole. It's what we did way back when, and now we tackle that fear little by little, getting outside our comfort zone. Decade to unlearn, decade to learn. Be patient with yourself, but choose to tell the story that you know is worth telling at the end of the day. It's been incredible. For anybody here watching, if you like this stuff like I do, like and subscribe below. Feel free to put any comments, any questions you have for Joe or myself. We will also put links to his books and his LinkedIn, so you'll be able to find him quick. We'll see you all next week, of course. And as always, Joe, for being on this and spreading your brilliance, thank you so, so much.
Thank you. And I'm just going to add, uh, if you want to change the world, you're going to have to tell a story of that change. That's why ultimately people come to me. They want to change something in the world. You're going to have to become a good communicator to do it.
Love that. Everybody, if you're looking to change the world, reach out to Joe, watch more of these, and we'll see you next week. Take care.